Hey guys, welcome to Teal House Farm. Today we are taking care of some tomatoes and making some tomato juice. And we are going to talk about whether or not you can reuse these store-bought glass jars to do some at-home canning. So let's go. Okay, so first order of business is what are we making? And we are going to make some tomato juice. So I have these bags of frozen tomatoes. I love tomatoes, and so what happens is I get tomatoes, and some weeks I eat like all of them because I like tomatoes and salt and pepper, or tomatoes on my sandwich, or tomatoes baked in things. And then some weeks I buy them and then I'm like, not really in a tomato-y mood after all, and some of them start to get a little soft. So I throw them in these old bread bags to reuse the bags, and I just stick them in the freezer. And when I get several bags full, I know it's time to make something. So it's a great way to keep things that go bad quickly in your home from going to waste. Obviously in the summer when we're growing tomatoes, I also do this with surplus tomatoes and make all sorts of things. But today's agenda is we're going to do something really simple, and we are going to make tomato juice. Tomato juice is a water bath can product, so you do not need a pressure canner to do this. You need a water bath canner, or actually you could probably just use a really big pot. Put a towel on the bottom of the pot before you fill it up with water to prevent your glass jars from getting just too overheated on the bottom of your pan. The water bath canner has a rack in it to prevent that from happening. Tomato juice is a great canning project anytime really, but if you are brand new to canning, this is a great one to start with. It is so easy, and because it's water bath canned, you don't need a lot of special equipment. And you may be thinking, I don't drink tomato juice though, why would I can it? I actually don't drink tomato juice either. I add it to my soups, I add it to my stews, sometimes I use it in baking. I use it to make like your Campbell's type tomato soup. So tomato juice wasn't something I ever usually bought at the store, but once I started canning it at home, I discovered how much I enjoy adding it to a lot of different recipes. So I highly recommend giving this a try if you've never done it before. So the second order of business, though, is to answer the burning question: can we reuse glass store-bought jars for canning? And the answer is both yes and no. So I was doing a little bit of research, and I discovered that during World War II, the United States actually encouraged people to reuse glass jars at home because there was a glass shortage due to the war. And today, when you think about canning, you usually only think about using mason jars, and there's a lot of weird feelings about using anything but a true like ball or cur or anchor glass mason jar at home. And the reason for that has to do with the difference between water bath and pressure canning. Your store-bought jars are more likely to burst in the pressure canner just because they are not the same type of tempered glass that is used to make mason jars. Now, you will notice that on the Classico jars, it actually does say Atlas Mason. This is not a true mason jar. This is just a clever marketing scheme. I looked it up. Classico bought the rights to Atlas Mason. Atlas Mason used to make true mason jars. Classico bought the rights to use their symbol quite a while ago, and they stamp it on all their jars, guess to make it just look more homey. But these are not true mason jars. So could you pressure can a product in these? Yes. Would I recommend it? No, because it's much more likely that one of them will burst, and that doesn't always mean in your pressure canner. It could burst when you try to get them out of your canner when you're moving them, and that could hurt you. It's going to be really hot and a lot of glass shards. So I personally do not feel comfortable pressure canning with these types of jars. Now, can you water bath can with them? Absolutely. These are glass jars, which means they can be cleaned and sterilized. Same with this one here. As long as they are glass jars, then they should be fine in the water bath canner. The other thing that you need to check with is to make sure that the lid is a standard size, that you actually have a lid that will fit on them. This peanut butter jar is not the correct size. The lid does not fit. So I can't can with this one. Now I could make jelly, put it in here, and use paraffin wax to seal it. This would work great for that. But because today we're making tomato juice, and tomato juice is going to need to be in a lidded container, I can't use wax to seal this, then I need to make sure my jars are standard size. So what I have today is I have several of these 24-ounce jar, and I apologize, this one hasn't been cleaned yet. I will clean it before I use it. But these 24-ounce jars, they fit a regular mouth lid perfectly. And this is a 32-ounce jar, and this also fits a regular mouth lid perfectly. So both these sizes are going to be great for canning. I apologize, the baby is eating a snack and he is being very loud. So yes, we are going to water bath can. We are going to make tomato juice today, and we are going to put it in these pasta sauce jars in order to reuse them, to save ourselves some money, and to just keep a few things out of the landfill. Why not? Let's go. Because these tomatoes have been in the freezer, we need to let them thaw for a little bit. And I also have some bread rising over here, so we've got our day started. So we are gonna just leave all this to do its stuff, leave the bread to rise, leave the tomatoes to thaw a bit, and I'm gonna take Annie to her therapy for today, her post-op therapy. Hey, little man. Shh, shh. Just like she has every day. And when we come home at about lunchtime, the bread will be ready to bake for lunch, to go with some real quick soup out of our pantry, out of our canning pantry. And then after lunch, these tomatoes should be perfectly mushy in order to be crushed to make tomato juice. So we will see you after lunch. Welcome back. So we are now ready to make our tomato juice. It is super easy. I'm going to take my now mostly defrosted tomatoes and I'm going to cut them into quarters. Doesn't have to be fancy. I'm going to throw them in the pot. Leave the skins on them. If there's any buds, I can't think of the word. If there's any leaves on them, you can discard those. You don't need to core them. You don't need to seed them. You don't need to peel them. They just quarter them and throw them in here. If there's any really gross bruises on them, you know, cut those off, obviously. But other than that, just in the pot. And then we are going to crush them and heat them up. Ivy here is going to come help me. You ready? Yes. Let's do it. Ow! 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 Hang on, I put it up. All right, Ivy helped me. We got these all diced. This is a lot. This is probably 3 gallons. This is a 5-gallon pot, maybe 5-gallon pot. I think it's bigger than 5 gallons. So it's more than half full. So I'm gonna say this is about 3 gallons of potatoes. 3 gallons of tomatoes. I know what we're doing here today. So we are going to heat these to a nice simmer. They don't have to be brought up to a boil. And while they're getting warm, I'm going to just go ahead and kind of crush them to get all the juice out of them. And then just let them simmer for 5 minutes. Our jars are clean and sterilized, and I'm going to keep them hot in my oven now. In about 3 minutes they can go in the oven. My loaves of bread are still in there. I put the oven on 225 and just slip the hot jars in there. And that keeps them warm until it's time to fill them. You never want to fill a cold jar with a hot liquid because you will probably explode your jar. Yes. Okay, get something out of the snack basket. And if you're brand new to canning, so you clean the jars in hot soapy water, rinse them off, and then you put them in a big pot on the stove to boil them, and that sterilizes them. If your stove is big enough to have that big pot and your cooking pot and your canning pot on it, then you can just leave them in the hot water, but my stove is not big enough, and so I need the pot that I use to sterilize them for my water bath canning. So now they're just on this cookie sheet. Put them in the oven at 225. That keeps them hot until I am ready to put liquid in them. The easiest thing to do is just to run them through your dishwasher and keep them in the dishwasher until you're ready to can, but I don't have a dishwasher, so that's not an option here. So we're going to kind of crush these and just let them simmer for 5 minutes, and then I will show you how we turn that into some juice.
What did you do today? Did you do the Tower of Farm?
20 pounds, dude? Is that what she said?
We'll just save our perfect food mix. Here you go.
Okay, tomatoes are starting to look a lot like juice. I think we're just about getting to a simmer, so we'll let them go for 5 minutes here. I did forget to mention that it's very important that you use a non-reactive pot. This is a stainless steel pot, and then I'm going to finish it up in this enameled pot. Do not use an aluminum pot when you're doing a high acid product like tomatoes. Bad idea. So Ivy is going to come help me in just a second. We're going to scoop everything out of here into this sieve, which is going to drain the juice into this enameled pot. And then we are actually going to keep all the innards that are going to collect, and we're going to use that to make a pasta sauce for dinner tonight. And then we're going to ladle it into our hot jars, and we're going to put a 1/4 teaspoon of citric acid on the bottom of each of our quart jars. It's important that you acidify your tomato products for safe water bath canning. Show you what's going on in case you're new to canning. Over here I have my water bath canner, and it is full, well, it's half full with hot water, and we're keeping it hot, but we are not starting it boiling yet, just hot. And I am putting my jars here on the rack, and we will lower the rack once my jars are all filled. We had brought our tomato juice, that's good Ivy, our tomato juice back to boiling. And Ivy is now filling the jars with the tomato juice. We're leaving about a 1-inch headspace. Basically, I just look for the bottom ring and do a little bit less, and that's good. You don't want to go too crazy on your headspace because too much headspace will make a situation where bacteria can grow, but doesn't create the pressure to pop your lid off and let you know that your jar is bad. My lids are in hot water here, simmering. And then I'm using a damp, clean rag here to wipe the rings off, or the rims off. And then I will place my lid on my jar. And then put the ring on to fingertip tightness. A little tighter than that. There we go. And then I quickly move the jar over here before it burns my fingers. Alright, now we go ahead and lower the rack into the canner, and then we are going to top it off with enough hot water to cover the tops of the jars. Alright, they need to process for 40 minutes. That means that when the canner hits a boil, we start a timer and we keep it boiling for 40 minutes. And then we turn it off, let it cool down, and remove our jars. Alright, while this is going, Ivy and I are going to turn the leftover pulp into some pasta sauce for dinner tonight.
Yummy, yummy, yummy.
We're going to add a jar of our home canned zucchini from last summer's garden, but I will drain that first. We are going to blend this all together so you don't even know these are in here, but the pulp has kind of a grittier texture. It's got all the skins in it, so the zucchini I feel like helps smooth it out. And I actually think I'm going to add a second jar of zucchini for the amount of pulp that's in there.
Why are you adding 2 in there?
1 chopped up onion in there. We're gonna do, probably 3 cloves worth of diced garlic. And start with about 2 teaspoons of salt and see how that goes. Oh, almost forgot the most important part. We need some sugar, otherwise it's not very sweet. I usually start with a 1/4 cup and then kind of go by taste. It's just water. Okay.
Doesn't have a plug this whole house?
Yeah. minutes left. Jars are still going really well. Sauce is looking great. We're gonna add the final ingredients for dinner here. So I have a can of home canned mushrooms. We did these in January and I can link that video below. And we're going to add some canned chicken meat. I don't have any home canned chicken meat, so just chicken meat from the store. My kids can be a little suspicious of mushrooms, so I'm going to go ahead and dice these up smaller before adding them to our sauce. And then I'll open these cans of chicken and throw them in the sauce too. The pasta is boiling, and then we'll mix it all together and put it in a baking pan with some cheese, and it'll become just a baked, kind of like a chicken primavera kind of pasta dish. And then we have successfully used up those tomatoes that I had thrown in the freezer. Tomatoes that very easily just could have landed in the compost pile or the trash can, but I saved them. Just systematically saved extra ones when I bought too many or had too many. And now was able to use that to make both a lot of tomato juice for cooking and then tomato sauce here. Thinking about adding some broccoli too. Anywhere you can get a vegetable. Anywhere you can get a vegetable in is good for you, right? Alright, we turned the water off. I turned the stove off. And we've let it rest for about 5 minutes. So now we're going to take the jars out. Something I forgot to mention. I don't care if my juice separates. It doesn't bother me. Oops, those are the wrong ones on my lifters. You see it's separated. I don't care. Some people care. You know, it's just a cosmetic thing, really. If you don't want it to separate, the full instructions are listed below with the link to the National Center for Home Food Preservation. There's a certain way to do this to prevent the separation. I don't care, so I don't put the extra effort in. Yes, Annie?
We need the tape.
And also, I didn't bother scrubbing the labels off of the jars because most of them just came right off in the canner. Saved myself a little bit of effort. There they are, our cans, reused, repurposed cans of tomato juice. Our sauce is ready. Gonna mix it with those noodles. Put it in these pans, cook one for dinner, freeze one for later with some cheese on top, and we're done. Beautiful. Are you ready to eat some dinner?
Toss, yes.
Yes, we have to cook it in the oven for 20 minutes. And then we will eat it, and it'll be delicious. Thanks so much for watching. Happy canning, happy cooking, happy baby. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you guys next time.